What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. As you can see, we have a very special guest instructor, my husband.
That's right.
I'm bringing him onto this episode today because we're going to be talking about how to know if you have a good jiu-jitsu instructor. Todd used to be one of the head instructors at the first gym that I trained at. So I feel like what better way to bring you guys real examples from someone who used to be a great, or still is, you still do private lessons. He's just not the head instructor of her school anymore. But he was the best, if I do say so myself. I'm not biased or anything.
No biases at all.
So I figured he would be the perfect person to come and chat with us, so let's get chatting. Having a great instructor can really make or break how long you stay in a school for, if you stay there for a short amount of time, if you're in that school for the long haul. The instructor really matters.
Absolutely. There's just so many factors that you need to consider going into it because you're making the commitment to go to Jiu Jitsu, which I think is the best martial art. I'm not biased. So we got to make sure we do right by you guys and make sure you know what to look for.
Being a great instructor is more than just the way you teach jiu-jitsu. There are a bunch of factors that go into it. It takes more than just being a good teacher to be an instructor that your students want to be around every day. So what are some things that we think makes up a good jiu-jitsu instructor?
We both agree that one of the most important things when looking for a great instructor is they make you feel welcome.
So what were some of the things that you did when you were the head instructor? What did you do to make your students feel welcome?
Well, the first thing, I think it goes anywhere, is just saying hello. Having a smile, like, hey guys, how's it going? I'm so excited for training today. Like, how was your day? It just makes them feel like jiu-jitsu can be an intimidating environment, right? Like people are rolling around, trying to take your arm, trying to take your neck. So breaking the ice like that, I believe, always set a tone for the class.
Yeah, I feel like you were always like bubbly and you can just tell that you were happy to be there. You were excited for class. You always had a smile on your face. And that's so important, like he said, especially when you're newer to jiu-jitsu and maybe when you've just joined a school, nobody wants to walk in the door and have the head instructor black belt, have a frown on their face or have a weird attitude. It definitely helps to have that really positive, just overall nice demeanor, I think, and just to simply have a smile on your face. One thing that I noticed when I first joined my current school, one thing that my coach did that I didn't see in my last school, he tries to remember every single person's name. And the way that he does that is at the end of class when we all go in the line and we shake each other's hands, he says thank you to every single person online. And like there's a ton of people in the class when you teach. I don't know how many classes he teaches a week,
like
30 classes a week, I think at least. And say there's 25 people in every class and there's different people in every class. That's a lot of students. I think we have 200 something students in the school. That's a lot of people. So I think it's really important. I thought it was really cool when I first joined that he tried to remember everybody's name, and he does that by like saying every person's name that walks online. It just makes you feel like you're a part of the school. It makes you feel like you're a part of the team. It makes you feel like you being there matters.
And it just shows that he wants to go that extra mile because like besides like obviously he wants to be at the academy, he like wants to show you that he appreciates you and like remembers. It's that extra bit of effort, right? Some instructors like, oh, like whatever, like kind of side by it, but like the fact that he takes the time after every class to make sure to like reiterate, and there might, right? He's not perfect. Like he tries to remember, like it's like drilling technique. He like drills like, okay, I'm gonna make sure I remember all the new faces and of course the people that have been taking care of me.
Yep. And then every single person that walks in the door, he says hello to, and he greets them with a smile, and he makes them feel welcome, and he makes them feel just comfortable walking in the door. You don't always get that everywhere that you go. The next thing that we think makes someone a great jiu-jitsu instructor is if they develop rapport with their students.
Yeah, 100%. It's important. Life gets in the way, right? So it's important you can't get to jiu-jitsu class every day. So as an instructor, I would reach out to students that I haven't seen in a while. Let's say I have someone who's there almost 3 to 4 times a week and
Then
they're not
stop
there.
showing up.
And I'll be concerned just to see like, hey, how's it going? Like, is everything all right? And that just shows them like, wow, like you genuinely care. Like I'm not just like some student in class, like you genuinely care about my well-being, and that goes such a long way. And I think that's probably one of the best qualities on this list for a great instructor to have, is just like it just develops that rapport, that connection.
There's this email that my school sends out if there's like a week where you don't go to class, right? And
Yeah.
they send out an email and it's like, you know that Kevin Hart meme where he's like, I don't know, like, yeah, like side-eyeing you, like with the crazy face. And it's just a big meme of Kevin Hart and it's like, where have you been? We miss you, blah, 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 blah. And I remember the first time I got that email, I like laughed out loud and I couldn't believe that my school was sending this. But when you think about it, it's actually like kind of nice. Obviously it's automated, but I think it just kind of shows that they like genuinely care. Like, why haven't you been signing into class? Where have you been? It just kind of, I think.
Your family misses you.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Exactly. And then going along with developing good rapport with your students. Obviously, like we said, checking in, making sure your students are good. But I think also just being an instructor, kind of like we said earlier, that your students want to be around. I feel like when you were the head instructor, everybody just always wanted to be around you. Everybody just wanted to like hang out with him.
That's
know?
what it is. I just feel like when class is over, like there would be like a second class where we talk about technique and things, but just kind of like hang out. Just relax. Just like cool down. Just kind of like this is a great way to kind of just for all of us just kind of decompress from whatever you went through that day. Because I think we could all agree that like you go to work, you do this, and it's like I just need to roll, and then once it's done, it's just to kick it with your jiu-jitsu homies. That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like that kind of goes into another point that we wanted to make too was I think a sign of someone that not just only teaches jiu-jitsu well, but just an overall great instructor that cares about his students or her students is someone who doesn't just want to teach the class and leave.
Yeah, 100%.
And like, we're not saying that every time you teach a class, if you're the head instructor, you have to hang out for 2 hours with your students. Obviously, you got things to do, people to see, places to go.
Yeah.
But I think it just, if you teach the class and then you walk off the mat, you head out, you do whatever you got to do, but you just kind of leave your students hanging. I don't know. I think it kind of just shows that like you care just about the class and that's it. Not so much like the individual people that are in the class. I don't know. I may be reading into that like a little too much, but what do you think?
I mean, and look, like she said, you don't need to stay there for 2 hours after class, but taking like 15, 30 minutes, like maybe there was someone that had a question, like, oh, coach, you know what? That's going to take a little more time. See me after class. Mm-hmm. And then that's a great way when that might cover someone who's afraid to talk in class. Like maybe there's a newer student. When they see that you do that, oh, wow. Like, do you mind if I sit and listen? Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to ask that, but I felt nervous. I didn't want to feel some type of way. It's like, no, of course not. Mm-hmm. So then that opens the doorway for a newer student that might be shy and uncomfortable. They see like, oh, wow, this coach is great. Like, he's super personable. Like, I feel like I can take that step to ask more questions instead of like, oh, wow, this is the black belt instructor. I don't want to look stupid asking. And like, that just kind of goes to what we're talking about, like just being cool and personable.
Yeah. So I think overall, just like we said, developing good rapport, developing good relationships with your students, it just shows, I think, overall that you care about your students. So now let's actually get into the jiu-jitsu part of class. And the next thing that we think makes a really great instructor is an instructor that takes the time to answer questions and makes you feel valid for asking the question. An instructor that doesn't make you feel stupid or dumb for asking a certain question.
I think that's probably one of the most important things on the list. That really shows that you have a great instructor.
If they can answer like all of the random questions in the room.
I would be deeply concerned if they weren't answering questions, because then you have to think, okay, like, and then ready, this is probably so important, as if they say they don't know something, right? They don't just give you straight answers like, oh yeah, sure.
I feel like this is like the true wisdom of like a good black belt. Again, I'm not biased, but that's a really great point.
Right? It's just so important, because I would feel so much happier if I said, hey, coach, I was doing this arm bar. What do you think about it? And they said, you know what? I've never done this variation before, but here's something that I've done. Like, okay. Like, I realized versus like, what about you think about this? That would never work. Well, do you have an answer for it? Well, no, you should just do the arm bar that I taught in class. Like, kind of sidestepping.
Yeah.
And that's
or
where
just like kind of shrugging off.
Red flag.
Yeah.
It's like shrugging off. Like, it shouldn't be that way. If you have a very competent black belt, they won't just give you like absolute straight answers. Like, oh yeah, this is the best arm bar variation. Mm-hmm. And honestly, they'll appreciate other black belts. Like, hey, I saw that. Like, I saw JT Torres doing this. Like, oh yeah, I love JT. Let me see that. Like, I'll take a genuine interest, because there's been times where I have not been able to ask questions like, what is this technique? Show me. Right, and that creates more dialogue to like really get to the nitty gritty and like, wow, like my question is valid.
Jiu-Jitsu is always evolving and changing, and sometimes we think that, you know, your journey ends when you reach black belt, and when you get your black belt, you know everything. And like my coach, he says before that, like, he doesn't know everything. There's been times where he's like, I feel like I don't know anything, and you know, we're looking up to him, and I look up to you, like, you're this magical black belt and you just know everything in the world, and like that's just not the case. But I think it, like he said, it takes a true leader to admit that you don't know something, but that you're willing to learn from someone else and learn something yourself.
I think that's like the best part about jiu-jitsu, right? I got excited where I forgot it was a Royal class, and Paulo, one of the other instructors at Royal, was teaching Berimbolo, and I was like, what in the heck? Yeah. I'm a big man. I don't go upside down, but I was like eager to like, all right, let me try this. Yeah. I feel so awkward. This is strange, but I'm going to like try and like figure it out. And like, Paulo, come help me. Mm-hmm. Yes, black belts do that too. We still ask questions, and I get excited to learn.
Some lower belts, like Paulo's technically
100%.
A lower belt, but he's very, very good at Berimbolos, and Todd is not. So, I think it just shows what kind of person you are, especially as a leader, if you're willing to still learn along the way.
100%.
And then kind of going back to something that you said like a minute or so ago about how jiu-jitsu is like, it's always changing, right? And there's not one right way to do something. So we think it's kind of a red flag if your instructor only believes that what they teach is the right way. And it kind of made me think of a point of, there's been multiple times where Mateus, my coach, will be instructing during a class, and he'll even say, like, I'm showing it this way. This is not the only way to do it. This is another way to do it. And maybe he'll show that way briefly. And then he'll say, find what works for you. Once you play around with it a little bit, there's multiple ways of doing it. And then you find what works for you. Because if you've been training for a little while, you'll understand and you'll realize that different body types, your weight, your height, the way that your body is just built, different techniques work differently for different people. So if your coach only wants you to do what they show, and they only know how to do the movement the way that they're showing, and they don't want you to learn any other way, I don't know. I think that's not a great sign of an instructor.
It's not a place for progression. And that's what we're there for. So if you see that, then you probably should find a new academy.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Another characteristic of a great jiu-jitsu instructor is one that goes around to each and every student multiple times throughout the drilling portion of the class.
Yeah, 100%. That's when I first started instructing. I started at purple belt, but got more into it at brown belt. Funny enough, when I first started working at UFC, I was a brown belt. And that was probably the one of the most...
It's hard to imagine, like, brown belt Todd.
This
non-black. I didn't know him when he was a brown belt.
No, she did not.
So you've been a black belt for a long time.
I've been a black belt for a little while now, and that was probably one of the most imperative things I had to learn is my mistake when I first instructed was trying to jam too much into the class, and then I wouldn't have enough time to get around to people.
Because they were like doing too much?
Yeah, they were doing too much, and then like I wish I would remember the name, but a student kind of like came up to me after class because goes back to rapport, right? Felt comfortable, like, hey, coach, could I tell you something? And it was basically along the lines like, it was a great class, but I felt like there was just too much, and I didn't really feel like you got a chance to like get to people. I was like, well, I appreciate that very much. So I try not to jam as much and make sure what I was teaching, everybody got a piece. I got to get to everyone. And then as we referenced earlier, if I didn't get to everyone, like, I'm sorry, like, please see me after class so you can get the attention that you need. But I will always strive to make at least one pass by everybody, and then make it known. A great instructor will like say, hey, like, if for some reason I don't get to you right away, feel free to like call out for me and I'll come over right away.
Yeah, that was one thing that I noticed right away in the school that I train at now compared to my first school, was that the head instructor, like, I don't know, I guess I went into the first class there just thinking, oh, they don't really know me, so they're not really going to pay any attention to me. There's a bunch of students in the room that they already know. And I was just so surprised that the instructors were coming over to me multiple times, drilling and correcting me. And it just felt like very refreshing, I think, knowing that they didn't play favorites. They didn't have just a specific group of people that they paid attention to. It was like every single person on the mat, no matter if you were new or you had been there a while, if they know you, if they know of you, if they have no idea who you are, that they're going to pay attention to you and that they want to see you do the right technique and do correct jiu-jitsu. And then the last characteristic that we think makes a great jiu-jitsu instructor is one that constantly corrects what you're doing.
The tiniest details matter most. And that's probably one of the most telltale signs of a really, truly great instructor. So I've had the opportunity to train with many. One in particular is GT Torres. And for those who don't know, he is a ADCC champion, the most prestigious tournament in jiu-jitsu to date, and has been training
a very long time.
Like, let's put it this way. When I was a blue belt, he was getting his black belt. He was right there. So that's like crazy to
you're
say.
like the same age.
And we're right around the same
30,
age.
31.
So this goes to show like there's levels to this and just
Yeah.
like his competence. But one of my favorite instructors that I had the opportunity to learn under, because he's just very meticulous and just would not let mistakes get in the way. Be like, oh, wait a minute. Like, slow that down. Let me show you. And like take the time to thoroughly go through things. And like, does that make sense? Like, I want to be clear across the board. Like, if something's missing, like, be honest. Like, if you didn't understand something. And I think that's so imperative because some students, in my experience, are like, oh, yeah, I got it. Like, did you really get it? Mm-hmm. It's okay. This is the time right now. Like, if I didn't articulate it the best way, like, I always try to, like, speak my students' language because everybody learns differently. Some are more, like, listening. Some need to, like, watch it over and over again. So that's important.
Like Todd said, there is levels to this. And I think that you could understand a move and you could be doing it kind of right, but are you doing all of the tiny little details? And does your instructor notice all of the tiny little details? Like the tiniest details of, say your posture is here, but it has to be here. Or, you know, you're bending over at the hips for whatever reason when you're passing or something. And how many times have I thought that I was bending over properly and I'm in like the hinge position and I'm doing something and it's not good enough. So my coach tells me, Kimberly, bend over more. And he'll like literally push me down to get into like the exact spot that he wants me. And it's just like tiniest, tiny details. And they really matter. And I think that just a really good instructor notices those things. And if they're not correcting you on just like moving your shoulder half an inch for something, or I don't even know what, but you know what I mean. If they're not correcting you on those things, then what are we doing? I just don't think that you're going to progress as much as you possibly could if you're not constantly being corrected on the details. And sometimes, I will admit, in the moment, it can be a little frustrating. You think you're doing something right, and you feel like you're doing it right, and you're not, okay? And it can be kind of frustrating. How many times have I been frustrated when I'm like, Mateus yelled at me for this today, and I didn't do this right, and blah, 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 blah.
That's what they're there for.
But, you know, like I said, all the tiny details matter, and you're only going to benefit from it in the long run.
That's right. You don't want an instructor that's fluffing you up like, oh yeah, you did so great, you didn't make a single mistake. No one wants that.
Yeah.
No, it's like, hey, sorry, you did this wrong and you did this wrong, and then you tune up, and then when you hit it right, it's like
then
you
it's
said,
just like that much
it's
better.
like, oh, okay, I was frustrated in the moment, but like that felt so good. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So we hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed Todd's guest appearance. If you have things that your head instructor does and you want to tell us and talk about it, leave a comment.
Yes,
let
please.
us know. We want to hear what makes your instructor a really great instructor. What do you love about all of your coaches? Leave a comment. Let us know. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed to my channel, subscribe to my channel. I really, really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that bell notification button so that you never miss when I post a new video. And until the next video, I will see you guys next time.